Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Care Nomad. My name is Matthew Wilbanks, and I'm here with my good friend and mentor, Dr. John Okinaga. Dr. O, how are you doing this week?
Well, I'm good. I guess I'm alive.
Hey, sometimes it's the best you can offer.
Hey, I someday. No, I'm good. I mean, I'm good.
Good.
I'm actually not tired, which is amazing.
Hey,
Uh,
maybe that medicine has been doing some good stuff for you.
actually, I've left my cough medicine here at work for the last week,
Mm.
and today's the first time I've taken it in a week.
He says as he lets out a big old cough.
Yeah, I forgot to take it home, and it's just sitting here, and I need to get a refill.
Mm.
I don't know how to do a refill though.
Yeah. But at the time of recording, the Super Bowl has not happened yet.
Oh
So
gosh.
when this finally is released, the Super Bowl will happen and the football world will be done. And here's the real question. How are the Yankees looking this year?
Why? Why you do this? So I just saw a statistic the other day for how much money baseball teams have spent over the last 2 years. The Dodgers are first at like 1.32 billion. The Mets are second at 1.08 billion. Third place is the Giants at 335 million. I forget who's fourth.
That's
It
a
must suck.
huge gap. Oh
And then the
my
Yankees are
gosh.
fifth. The Yankees are fifth at, I don't know. Let's see. MLB last 2 seasons money spent. All right, so here it is. I found it.
Hmm.
Oh, here it is. I was wrong. So the Yankees are Dodgers are at 1.45 billion. I apologize. I was off by 100 million. Mets are at 1.02 billion. San Fran is 482 million. The Diamondbacks are at 372 million. And the Yankees are at 278 million.
I
We're no longer
guarantee
the
you the
evil empire.
Rangers are right near the bottom.
Rangers are ninth at 173 million.
What?
The bottom team is the Marlins at 5 million. Man, they need a salary floor, bro.
That's not even a good player contract in the world of sports.
Yeah,
That's
5 million.
nuts.
The Twins are at 6 million. Rockies at 13. San Diego's at 18.
Dang.
Rays are at 21.
Well,
Yeah, but the mighty vaunted evil empire New York Yankees spent, what is that? Yeah, they spent 80.83% less than the Dodgers.
oh man.
The Yankees are no longer. Thanks for just depressing me. Like I went from, I thought you were going to ask me questions about football and like hoping that a meteor strikes somewhere where the Super Bowl is canceled, to even more depressing is realizing the Yankees are going to do diddly squat this year.
Now. The Rangers, they won a World Series.
Yeah, but see, the Rangers had pitching, they had youth, they had momentum at the
No,
end.
I disagree. The
So
Rangers had Jose Leclerc, who
I have DJ LeMahieu playing third base. Shut up.
every single time he got up to pitch, I was like, I was gonna have a mini cardiac arrest because I was like,
Bro,
I have no idea.
I'll take him over DJ LeMahieu any day.
Ugh. But I mean, spring training is right around the corner, so you don't know. Things could happen. There's always mid-season trades that happen, so but like most Americans, we will all be rooting for the ultimate demise of the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers, and then everyone else is just kind of like, whatever.
No, see, I've because I collect Shohei and Yamamoto and definitely Roki Sasaki.
Mm.
I am now 1A is the New York Yankees, 1B is the little Asian Dodgers.
Hmm.
I mean, basically, the Dodgers are Japan's World Baseball Classic team.
Yeah.
And if they
No.
get Murakami next year, good Lord, that team is going to be just Japan light.
Hey, Otani's old translator got sentenced to 50 plus months in jail.
Yeah, let's just be honest. It was Shohei betting.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
All right.
He's
Let,
the
let, let's move
translator's
on.
just a fall guy.
Yeah, he was just a fall guy.
Dang.
Us Japanese love to gamble. Just
I mean,
built in us.
even the crazy thing is, even though gambling is outlawed in Japan, there are so many ways to get around it. It's
Yeah, it's called
crazy.
pachinko. It's called the yakuza. It's called.
Yeah.
And you know what's even more stupid about this whole thing with Shohei?
Hmm.
All he had to do is go to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't bet on baseball. He bet on everything else.
Yep.
He bet on everything else but baseball. Just oh my gosh, that was so like who would have cared? No one would have cared. But the reason why it was such a big deal was because it was gambling through like a shady dude in Cali.
Mm-hmm.
Like first of all, that's dumb. Second of all, you get comp points and stuff in Vegas. No one cares. It's illegal. No, but I mean most sports leagues now are sponsored by some gambling thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I get Instagram ads for like sports betting stuff all the time.
Yeah, look,
And
FanDuel. Gambling giant secures broadcast integrations and marketing rights. Major League Baseball has announced U.S. gambling firm FanDuel as a co-exclusive official sports betting partner in a multi-year deal.
mm-mm.
NFL gambling partnerships. NFL announces agreements with four approved sportsbook operations: Fox Bet, Bet MGM, PointsBet, and WinBet. Now let's look at NBA. And for those of you, I'm not advocating. I'm just saying. And then NBA's DraftKings, FanDuel, and Bet MGM.
Mm.
Like some of these players are just so dumb. Just don't bet on your sport. Go to
Yep.
Vegas, set up an account. You're fine.
Well, you also had that umpire get fired for betting on baseball.
He didn't bet. It was his friend. And if you look at his rating, he was the best umpire out of all of them.
It's crazy.
Hoiberg, or whatever his name is, his umpire rating was 100%. He got 100% of the calls right.
Dang.
Yeah, just some people are just so dumb. Like they should listen to our podcast and be good. Don't be stupid. Save a lot of these idiots a ton of money.
Uh,
Anyway, I'm feisty this morning. Let's get to our podcast, sir.
all right. Gambling is still a sin, even though it's okay for a lot of people. Don't do it.
It's dumb.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
not
you
good
look at
stewardship.
what does Shohei need? I think what his no, if it really was him and he lost, $20 million, so what? He's worth like a billion plus. You know,
Yeah.
he's just doing it to appear smart.
Yep.
Dummies. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Anyways, we're not here to spend the entire episode talking about sports. We
You
are
started it.
going to talk about some things that have transpired recently, and kind of build off of that discussion. So recently in my life, I have been in a lot of difficult situations, and a lot of it has to do with church people. And so that's kind of what we are going to be talking about today is church hurt. Um,
Mm.
what is it? Why is it such a big deal? And why is it a little different than other types of hurt? So without going into any details, just the big flyover is myself and my family, members of my family, have been dealing with different churches, just not being good representations of Christ in the way that they carry themselves. And it's left a lot of hurt for myself and my family. And so kind of what we're going to talk about today is that how do we deal with it? How do we work through this? So Dr. O, in your experience, when you've had guys come in that have just talked about the brokenness they have because they've been hurt by fellow Christians. Um, what are some of the main talking points you want to address?
I mean, first is acknowledging the hurt. We're never minimizing it. We're never discounting it. We're never pushing it to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why do if you ask people why do you stop going to church? Probably a top three reason: church hurts.
Yeah.
And I think it hurts so bad because the church is actually designed to be a place for fellowship and growth and edification. So when that doesn't take place and instead there's betrayal and stupid leaders who fail or abuse or relational conflicts, it hurts even more because that's not where it should be taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we expect that church is a safe place, and I kind of start from this premise, like, but we also got to admit that those who commit the hurt are human.
Mm-hmm.
That they might have been well intentioned when they started their position, but for whatever reason, things went sideways and they've lost their way. And as I counsel people going through those struggles, I have to remind them, like, but it could have happened to you as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you could have been the one doing hurt. So with that said, like, to make sure to guard against bitterness and unforgiveness,
Yeah.
because that bitterness and unforgiveness is like an acid that eats away, and it only eats away at you.
Mm.
The one that's hurt the most due to that bitterness and unforgiveness is a one who's bitter, and unforgiveness only makes that wound worse.
Yep.
It's just like you take this infected small baby cut, and instead of putting medicine on it, you keep feeding it with more bacteria
Mm.
and more junk, and that small little open wound just gets big. Hebrews 12:15 talks about bitterness. And let me find the exact verse. Hold on. Not the exact verse. Let me see what it actually says.
Hey.
See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. So that bitterness is only hurting the one that's holding on to that bitterness. So, as Elsa said in Frozen, let it go. But it's not easy, right? It's not easy to let it go. So as I'm counseling someone to let it go, it's reminding them and acknowledging that there is pain, but that pain can only be healed by God. So take it to God. Don't don't just hyper focus on it all the time, because scripture doesn't dismiss suffering.
Mm.
So when someone is experiencing church hurt, acknowledge the pain before God and then leave it at the cross. And I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're human, and we have emotions and feelings. And Matt, but you know this, we can't let emotions and feelings drive us,
Mm-hmm.
because when emotions and feelings drive us, that's when we get into trouble. But we're emotion based and we're feeling based. Well, I feel this way, therefore I. No, just because you've been sinned against doesn't give you the license to sin.
Right.
And then the next is evaluating the situation objectively. Now, like in your case and your family's case, I don't need to hear the other side. And the reason why I don't need to hear the other side, it's not why things went down, it's how things went down.
Mm.
And I think the how in church hurt is a pretty big deal. So, evaluating your situation objectively, in no situation for either of these situations, neither you or your family should have been treated the way they were
Mm.
and how they were treated.
Mm.
Now, with that said, it's like we also got to understand that on the other side, they're human.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're human, reconciliation should be the ultimate goal, when, if possible. And I think when, your thing went down with your job, do you remember what I said about go talk to him?
Mm-hmm.
Were you, did you have every reason to be upset? Absolutely. Never minimize it. But I believe my exact counsel to you was, before you really get ticked off, go talk to him and ask for what you need to ask him for to take place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you did that, he's still he's still not your best friend. So I think when we take the time to let our emotions and feelings calm down and we go in with a clear head, what we hopefully realize is in not all, but in most cases, that hurt comes from someone else being hurt as well,
Hmm.
or someone else being under undue pressure. And in an ideal godly setting, they would do something that would bring God praise, glory, and honor. But sometimes, due to fear of man, it doesn't always go that way.
Right.
Now, I think a clear distinction that we need to make clear is that there's also a difference between church hurt and church abuse.
Hmm.
In your case, abuse didn't take place. In your family member's case, I would argue that abuse probably has taken place.
I would make that strong argument that
Yeah,
abuse
well,
did take
I'm
place.
I'm trying to be objective,
Yeah,
okay? Because
yeah.
I don't, like I said, evaluate the situation objectively, but I'm. It's funny we talk about gambling. If I was a betting man, I would probably default that in your family member's case, church abuse is taking place.
Mm,
And in that case, we need to understand or accept that sometimes there's corrupt leaders that are out there.
mm,
And if a leader is manipulating for control or for selfish gain, then in your family member, what they did was right, they left.
mm,
Now I think, in both your situation and your family member situation, here's some of the things that you did well in the midst of church hurt. You sought godly counsel and accountability. And what I appreciate about you, Matt, was I gave you tough suggestions. Wasn't easy, and I know you didn't like it when I told you some of those things,
hmm.
but you trusted me and you followed through. And I think in the end, it saved me money,
Yeah.
which I'm not gonna lie, saved me money. But I think next is, what I see is right now neither of you guys have a quote unquote local church, but you're still staying committed to Christ, and that's something to rejoice in because that doesn't always happen in church hurt. A lot of times when people have gone through church hurt, they're just like, forget it, I'm done with church, and they never come back. And that's not God honoring, and that's also misplacing trust in the church and not putting faith and hope in Christ.
Mm,
Scripture tells us that we're supposed to be part of a gathering of believers, and the church is Christ's bride, and we cannot forget these things. And while local churches do fail, God does it.
mm,
Now, that healing, is there a healing time that's going to take place? Absolutely. Like if your family member didn't go to church for the next 2 weeks just because it hurts a little bit, all right. But I sure as heck hope that they're watching a church sermon online,
yeah.
that they're still being fed spiritually, that just because that church hurt, and or in that case abuse is taking place, that they don't see it as God who did it, but just man. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then finally, trusting God. And so there's two different approaches here in your situation. For yours, is trusting God to bring healing,
Mm,
and that's going to take time. And in your family's case, trusting God to bring justice. Now,
mm,
here's the thing about justice: justice doesn't always happen on our time.
right.
And just because we don't see justice taking place on our time doesn't mean that God doesn't see it or God ignores it. But, my sister has been through some church hurt, some pretty bad church hurt. And she didn't like me for a while because of my counsel I gave her. But I said, Marissa, God knows. Let God be the judge.
Mm,
Because she wanted certain things to take place. And I'm like, that's not your role. And the example I use is even for pastors, they're called by God. And if you look at how David treated Saul, David had an opportunity to take out Saul, correct?
multiple times.
Multiple times. And why didn't David do that, Matt?
Because David said that Saul was the Lord's anointed, and who is he to go against what the Lord has set in place?
So David, I think that's a good model for church abuse, church hurt. Let God be God.
Mm.
And when we let God be God, ultimately there should be a peace that springs forth from that.
Yeah.
Because it's a realization that it's not your job to be judge, jury, or executioner. That's God's job. And I got to do it because it's in my head. In the immortal words of Tupac, only God can judge me. And but at the same time, it's like, is God a fair judge? Yes, he is. But for those that have been anointed and called, that judgment is going to be severe.
Mm.
That judgment is more severe than anything we could ever think of. So let God be God.
Yep.
But ultimately, church doesn't have to define you, Matt.
Mm.
Christ does. Your
Mhm.
identity, I hope, over time doesn't become someone who's been through church hurt, but your identity is child of the Most High, who is able to overcome church hurt and so love the church. And to remember that the actions of sinful people, even within, bro, there's so many evil people in church,
Mhm.
Christian higher education. Doesn't matter where you go, there's always going to be sinful people.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, we're also sinners in the church. We're also sinners in, I'm also a sinner in higher education. And what I hope that means for us is we realize that we're sinners in need of a savior and that we lay our burdens at the feet of Christ and we trust God to be God.
Mm.
And as you're navigating these things, you always have a place to stay with us. My parents won't be back until May. And if you need, I'll feed you. I think my house is pretty nice. You have a big TV you can watch and you can finally pass my Mario Kart. And I know that's not what you want right now, but I just want you to know that you're not going to be homeless
Yeah.
and that there's people who truly love you and are looking for ways to help you navigate this in a way that honors God.
Yeah.
So that's what I got.
All right. Without making a sermonette out of this last few minutes,
Actually, Ryan likes your mini sermons, by the way.
um, also, just want to point this out. You'll never hear Dr. Dale Johnson quote Frozen or Tupac in a podcast episode. So that's why we're unique. Um,
Hey,
but
I ever tell you about that Tupac story in seminary?
oh yeah, all the time, all the time.
Dr. Cat found it hilarious. He cracked up.
It's just that's what makes this podcast real. It's whatever our lived experience is. That's what influences what we talk about. Um, but Psalm 13, there's a worship song that's taken from this. I don't remember who it's by, but it was Dr. Joe Kreider played it in my theology of worship class in seminary, and it's one of those passages that you read over so many times, and then something in your life happens, and this is a passage I go back to all the time. It's only 6 verses, short chapter, but it says, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I store up anxious concerns within me, agony in my mind every day? And how long will my enemy dominate me? Consider me and answer, Lord my God. Restore brightness to my eyes. Otherwise, I will sleep in death, and my enemy will say, I have triumphed over him, and my foes will rejoice because I am shaken." And there's a lot that happened in David's life. We can look at it and go, I can point to specific parts in his life where this was probably where he wrote it. But the thing I love about the book of Psalms is that it's just emotions. It's raw emotions. And for anyone that says emotions shouldn't be a part of worship, you need to hand them just the book of Psalms and just say, read this.
Hmm.
Like our emotions do influence our actions. Now, as you said earlier, we can't allow our emotions to take control over how we respond, but they definitely influence how we do. But in these moments, David could sit there and say, God, where are you? Why aren't you listening to me? I thought you said you would be there for me. Because the kings would have the law, the scrolls of the law read to them all the time. So they knew, they were pretty much, they were Bible scholars in a way. And so David, now on the run, having to remember what God has taught him through the reading of his law, he's sitting there and he's like, where are you? Why aren't you here? It feels like my enemies are going to be, the thing that takes me over. But then we get to verses 5 and 6. But I have trusted in your faithful love, and my heart will rejoice in your deliverance. I will sing to the Lord because he has treated me generously. A majority of the verses in this short little chapter are about his pain and his hurt and his suffering. And yet the verses with the biggest impact are the last two. Even in the midst of all this hurt. And I'm going to be honest, I have tried my best to watch church services as I look for a new job. I've watched, services from churches. I've put my resume out, and there's a lot of good churches out there. So let this also be an encouragement for those who are looking. There are a lot of good churches out there all over the United States. Just because of a particular instance in a particular location doesn't mean all the other churches are just like that. So keep that in mind as well. But for me personally, I haven't been inside of a church in 2 weeks. I've tried really hard to consider the Lord in my daily actions, but when I sit around in my apartment and have nothing to do, it's really easy in my instance, to let my emotions take over my thoughts and my actions instead of doing what needs to be done, opening the word. Like, I haven't read a theology book in weeks. And that's one of the things I love to do, is I love to read. But because of what's happened, because of the hurt that I have, it's taken a lot from me. And moving forward, I have to remember that it's not what has been taken from me, but it's what I have left.
Yeah, so on Saturday you're sleeping over and going to church with me on Sunday morning.
I figured you would say that. But I have another family member who is not a believer, and it's been a prayer of my family for a while that God would take away things from this family member so that they would see God as the only thing left. And
God took it away from you.
And he took it away from me.
Sorry, I'm not laughing.
So, I mean, just looking at that instance, it's like, if I'm going to pray this for someone, I need to also be ready to bear that burden. I need to be aware of the hurt. I mean, it's the same reason why in your emotions and addictions class, we had to take away something for a month so that we can kind of experience and see what it's like. I mean, the only thing that I've had for comfort is streaming services and video games. And let me tell you, they're not that great at helping me get through hard times. They're very good at dulling pain like a Tylenol, but the heart issue, the main root of the problem, is still there. I've gotten very good at ignoring it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we need to do in the midst of especially church hurt. And why it's so different is because you said it at the beginning, church is supposed to be a place of security and peace and comfort. And yet it has become everything but that for my family in the past few weeks, especially for my family member in particular, for the past few months.
Yeah.
And because of that, pastors, if you're listening, just know that that is a reality for a lot of people in your churches that you may or may not know about. So don't shy away from preaching about comfort. Don't shy away of talking to your church members. I think it's crazy that I have to say that sometimes, because some of our churches are so huge that people have never talked to their pastor and they've been a member for months. Know your flock, know your people, and make sure that you have plenty of other staff members or volunteers that are doing that work if you can't do it.
Mm.
We have to make sure that we are taking care, because ultimately it goes upon who is the head of the church. It's Christ. He is the one who is over all things, and he gives us the ability to minister to people individually. And for us as now every single Christian as a minister, we have to be looking out for each other, and that has not happened in my experience for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So take special care, take special attention to those who are hurting. Be in prayer for those who are hurting. You can be in prayer for me. I would appreciate it.
Well, you're
But
coming over to the house on Saturday, by the way.
yeah.
You're sleeping over. You're coming to church with us on Sunday.
But more importantly, be in prayer for those who you personally know, you see day in, week out, and reach out to them. Let them know that you're praying for them. That does a lot more than you think. And so for me, I have to be reminded of that, so that and it's the same thing for 2 Corinthians chapter 1, we're a comfort so that other people can be comforted. Take that into consideration when you have someone who's talking about hurt. So, yep, that's it. Dr. O, do you have any final thoughts?
I love you.
I love you too, man.
And I'm here for you. And Nicole and I want to help you however we can.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
You're sleeping over on Saturday.
Thank you for reminding me of that again.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for us in this episode. Be sure to bet against the Yankees, because they're not going to be doing good this year.
One more thing.
All right, one more thing.
Go follow my Twitter.
That's right. Dr. has a Twitter now.
I know. God help us.
And that horrible landscape known as X.
Yeah. At John Okinaga, I think, is the right thing. So
I will put it in the description. We can find the rest of our stuff in. And we will see y'all in the next one.
Be good. Don't be stupid.
Bye, everybody.